when you're looking for purpose, it just feels so big and sometimes so overwhelming that you just don't even know where to start. And then because you don't know where to start, you don't start at all. But so if we can find any way, I think, of narrowing in on what might be a good path for us, it's so helpful. And so I think if we can just start even by, okay, here's what my needs are in my phase of life. I know there's other women that are struggling with the same thing, and maybe you haven't found any good way to meet that need. So maybe you're going to go, okay, I'm going to figure out how to fix it for myself. And I'm going to actually along the way help all these other women too. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Drs. Brooke and Lynn. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
I always sound like I've just smoked a pack of cigarettes. My voice.
You pick the perfect times to clear your throat. And now that we've got this set up and the microphone's right in front of your face, you can't hide any of that. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. It's day 2 of recording, and we're starting off with, I think, a pretty good topic. What do you think?
Yes.
Tell them what we're talking about.
So a lot of times we get questions. Thank you so much, first of all, for engaging with us, sending us questions, comments, feedback. We absolutely love that. And we thrive on it because we're doing this for you. And when we can hear directly from you, it makes us feel like we are giving you more of what you need. Yeah. So a lot of our women will talk about feeling lonely or missing their kids. These are obvious, themes that we hear. Today we're talking about, we talk a lot about staying in your zone of control. So the topic is sowing a seed where you have a need. In other words, if you feel lonely, be a friend.
Yes.
That's just one example. We're going to talk about more.
Right. Well, I think it's so easy to go inward focus when we're in this phase of life. Anytime. It's a natural tendency to think about everything that's wrong and how we're feeling, and not look at ways like, how can we take that, what we're feeling or struggling with, right? And instead of focusing on the struggle, how can we actually use that as a silver lining and turn it around and do something really good with our lives from it?
Yes.
Is that what you were getting at?
I think I'm taking this wide tangent to get to the point, which is if you feel lonely, put your energy and your effort into doing things for other people. And the law of reciprocity, which is the more you give, the more you get. Chances are, if you just have a little trust and faith, that friendliness, that friendship will come back to you. If you're giving to someone else, maybe, not to every single person, because we do have people that take, don't get me wrong. But the law of averages, if you do that with several people, chances are you're going to get way more coming back to you than even you give.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it through, I see where you're going now, because this could be a wide topic. And at the end of the day too, we can
me, I'm going to drive way around the corner to get back
but
to the view.
So to your point, when you started out and you were saying we can't control what other people are going to do. So in this case, let's just use the example of loneliness, because we're talking about sowing a seed where we have a need. And by far, I think the biggest thing we hear from our community is that they're feeling lonely in this phase of life as the kids grow up.
Let's talk about that for a second, because, as you guys know, my daughter's a senior, and it does start to hit you. I guess aha moment, it's starting to hit me how deep that can go.
Yeah.
You lose if you have a daughter or son that you're close with, you lose a very good friend who's in your life right by your side, day in, day out.
And not that you lose them, obviously, but you're not seeing them every day. If they go away to school,
you lose the companionship of them being right there.
Right. And the time spent. And so to your point, you can't, if you're feeling lonely, right? As we just said, loneliness is probably one of the biggest things that we hear from the moms in this community. And you're not going to necessarily be able to control how much your friends or your family, whoever it is, even your child, reaches out to you to talk and to fill that need. So if you're feeling lonely, other people probably are too. We know other people are too. And the only thing you can control is your actions. So why not flip that script and use it for some purpose in your life? So maybe that looks like you have elderly neighbor that doesn't get many visitors, and you make a point to start to check in on them or spend a few hours with them. Or maybe if you're feeling lonely and you're missing your kids, you have somebody in your neighborhood that has young kids that could, boy, sure use a break. Right now I'm talking to a lot of our Enneagram 2s right now, because a lot of us moms that, I think a lot of the moms that feel the really big heartache of the kid leavings are often a 2, right? And they're used to that caretaking.
Yeah.
So
We're talking to you if if you're that person who's like, I just miss taking care of my kids, you could likely be an Enneagram 2, or have some of those, be a remarkable relator that,
mhm.
of the 4 mom types who just loves to give of themselves to others, right? We have a whole section on that in the book. Um, and yeah, what I think is, I heard this and it really struck me. The world is full of lonely people afraid to
Mm,
make the first move.
yeah,
And I think that our whole purpose in life, and, honestly, we sit here and we talk to ourselves as much as we talk to you,
right,
is to say, hey, wait now, it doesn't have to be that way.
right,
I can do something about this. I don't like this situation. I don't like how lonely I feel. There's something I can do. And
right,
that is to reach out, make the
right.
first move, risk the rejection,
Mm-hmm.
because it might happen. It's okay.
Yep.
Because the more you get rejected and realize, okay, I'm still here. I'm a little bruised, but I'm, you know, not completely bent, and I can get up, dust off, and try it again with another friend
And keep moving forward.
and
Yeah.
keep moving
And
forward.
that, but by the way, this can apply, like, we can talk about this in a wider lens of just feeling lonely, because, the biggest question that we try to answer, or we help to answer, not just try, we're helping to answer, is like, what's next for me? What's my purpose? And I think if we're breaking it down and like, let's start with, okay, well, what needs do we know collectively as moms in this phase of life? What needs do we have? And is there a way that I can fulfill one of those needs as part of my purpose? Because A, I'm going through it, so it's relatable to me and I understand it. And B, you're providing a service because other women need it too. So we can talk about loneliness. We can talk about our physical health and fitness. Maybe you're somebody that could get into, like, we had somebody in our membership community who had all that background with training for races and physical training, and was thinking about quitting, leaving the job she was in and going into that. There's so many needs that we can meet just if we take a step back and look at our needs in this phase of life.
Right. So we have a need to be emotionally healthy. We have a need to be physically healthy.
Mm-hmm.
We have a need for purpose.
Yep.
I like that. So you're basically saying, look at the bigger picture
Mm-hmm.
and find out whatever piece you're struggling with, try to meet that need for someone else.
Yeah, or that could be that's maybe your can
Your
becomes your
contribution.
purpose and your
Mm-hmm.
contribution. So I'll give you another example here, because we had an amazing talk and interview with a woman named Kaya Tomlin. And if you haven't listened to the interview, go back and listen to it. But essentially, that's how she came to her purpose, because she was walking through her life. She's a designer, by the way. She has a clothing brand, but she was going through her life when her kids were younger. And then as she aged, and was like, I want to look good, but I also want to be super comfortable. And there's nothing that I can find that's meeting that need. So she had a little bit of a background in sewing because it was a hobby of hers for most of her childhood. And she was like, okay, well, I need it. I'm going to do it for myself first. And then surely others need it. It helped me so much. I love this
Oh,
dress.
okay.
She was getting compliments on it. And then she ended up finding her purpose and giving it to other women too, because guess what? She needed it. And there were other women her age, same stage, that needed the same thing.
What's that quote? Oh, shoot. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes, something like that. I know what you're getting at. Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yes. So okay, and Kaya, to your point, go back and listen to that, because
It was an amazing
she
interview.
had so many practical tips about
Mm-hmm.
how to navigate this part of your life really well. I was like, man, those are great ideas.
Yep.
And she happens to be the wife of Mike Tomlin, who's the Steelers head coach,
Right.
Pittsburgh Steelers, and has a lot of purpose coming through from the like you said, her need
Mm-hmm.
to find what was lacking in the marketplace. So cluing into those parts of your life where, okay, not just loneliness, not just boredom, but makeup. Like maybe you're struggling with your face and you found a way to highlight or accentuate. And we're going to talk with Lauren Hale in a few weeks about that. But that's part of her purpose. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she had these skills and talents. She got a little older and realized there was like a lack of education and addressing the changing of the skin in our,
Yeah.
at our age.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I mean, I think it's a good topic of conversation. And by the way, this is how Life After Kids community was born, because you and I had a need. We're coming down off of that hike and we're like, okay, our kids are getting older. We don't necessarily want to be tied down to having to be in the office, every day of the week, because we want flexibility to spend time with them, to travel. We'd like to do something on our own. And like, we need to find more purpose. And we're like, well, wait a minute, if we're feeling
That was
this, a
our
lot
need.
of other moms are too. And then, okay, so they are too. Let's tackle that. What can we
Mm.
do to scratch our own needs, hit our own need, but also help other women with it? So I think this is the thing: when you're looking for purpose, it just feels so big and sometimes so overwhelming that you just don't even know where to start. And then because you don't know where to start, you don't start at all. But so if we can find any way, I think, of narrowing in on what might be a good path for us, it's so helpful. And so I think if we can just start even by, okay, here's what my needs are in my phase of life. I know there's other women that are struggling with the same thing, and maybe you haven't found any good way to meet that need. So maybe you're going to go,
You're the
okay, I'm
answer.
going to figure out how to fix it for myself, and I'm going to actually along the way help all these other women too.
So good. Okay, yeah, we do talk about this in the book with the purpose formula, where you also consider your talents because you don't want it to feel like work. And when you're working through your talents, it feels more like joy because you're good at it naturally and it comes easy to
Right.
you. Right? So you take and consider your talents. You also consider your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you have an actual emotional connection?
Right.
Is it animals? Is it the environment? Is it helping homeless people? Is it women and children's issues? Is it sex trafficking? Et cetera. The list goes on. But those things are multiplied by that urgent need. We
Mm-hmm.
talk about that urgent need. Like, where is the need in your community, in your neighborhood? It doesn't have to be the world, it doesn't have to be so
Right.
overwhelming. You don't have to listen. You may have a great life. You might, love the brunch world, right? The
I
brunching
love a good
style
brunch.
and the cocktail party. Like, this is me. I'm down for it all. I'm like, just enjoy where we are, but at the same time, all fun and no contribution makes us restless over time. So if you can find a way to squeeze a little bit of that in there, it doesn't have to be like, all right, I'm going to put all my needs aside and go save the world at this phase, because that's not what we're saying. It's
No.
not about doing that. It's about finding ways to make a difference and leave your mark on in the community, but mostly to meet a need.
Yes. And if you're meeting your own need in the midst of it, if you know what I mean, and then you're
It's
also
just
meeting
good
somebody
sense.
else's needs, yeah, it's very helpful. So I think that is I think it's a really interesting lens to look at this topic of finding more purpose, again, just to narrow it down some, to just get a little more focused in on what you may or may not want to do. To think of it that way is very helpful, because it's something we already relate to, because we are in that phase of life, and we know what our needs are, because we are us. That sounds silly, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's how so many people that start something new or start over or start a business or whatever it is, if you're volunteering, like, how many people do you know who had and maybe not personally, but just overall, like a child who was sick, right? Or a spouse that they lost
Or
from
themselves
something or
personally.
whatever it
If you
was.
get
And they
ill,
took that and said, okay, this was a hard need for me. This was a big struggle. How can I turn this around and use it to meet somebody else's need? And then also, by the way, in the midst of that, I'm going to grow myself and heal. And it doesn't have to be something that, I mean, God bless you if you're listening and you have lost somebody that's close to you, like a spouse, or because we have a lot of women write in about being widows in this phase of life, or heaven forbid, even a child. So I don't want to minimize that, but it also could be, that's a really big need, right? In a really big struggle. But I'm using that as a metaphor for there are other maybe smaller things that happen or smaller needs, but we can take that same premise of, okay, this was a struggle for you, for me. How can I use that and turn it around to help myself, but also help other people?
So what comes to mind is a friend of ours he says this a lot. It's purpose through pain. Your pain is a clue or path to your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
because it's that very topic, sowing a need. So something happened to you. You didn't understand why in the moment. And it felt awful, disappointing. I mean, there's the scope and the amplitude of whatever it is that we're talking about can go from minor to very major, like
Yep.
huge. But whatever it is, I subscribe, life is happening for you, not to
Yeah.
you. And so something in that, there's some beauty in that. And it can be that once you come out of the end of that tunnel and you know, hopefully you survive that and come through with some really hard knock lessons,
Yeah.
you can take those and that can be your purpose,
Right.
because other people are struggling with that and they don't know the way out yet.
Right.
You can show them the way.
Absolutely. And this could be on a bigger scale, and by bigger I mean, maybe you're going to start a business around it. Let's skinny it down and just talk skinny. I'm saying was going to say let's talk about like being physically healthy and physically fit. And maybe that had been a goal for years, or maybe this has been a struggle for you and you know that it's affecting your health. We're getting older, so you really laser focus in on that and get yourself to where you want to be. Well, now you're meeting a need, and can you turn that around and use that to help somebody else? Maybe you need to go get some training. Maybe you need to get whatever certification. But this doesn't even necessarily have to be like, okay, I'm going to start my own business and help women in this space. It could just be that
No, because not
you,
everybody wants to do that.
no, but
And that doesn't fit in everybody's family dynamic or economics or how they're wired to take on that stress,
right.
so
But let me get there because I agree. So my point is, and we talk about purpose doesn't have to be this big thing. Like give yourself a break. Maybe that just means for you, you come alongside a friend who is struggling with the same thing, and you're going to be an accountability partner for her. You're going to take her and meet her at the gym and walk her through some of the things you did, or give her some, some not don't do this unwarranted. Because if somebody doesn't ask for it, they might not appreciate it. But do you see what I'm saying? Like we can look for these things in our day-to-day life where we can serve a purpose, and it doesn't have to be on this huge, I'm starting this new business, or I'm going to save the world, or I'm going to start my own nonprofit organization. But if we start to focus in on the needs of ourselves and other people, we might be able to, and I know we can find smaller ways to serve those
yeah,
needs.
those needs are great clues.
Right.
Yeah, we should listen to them and tune in. Be
Yeah.
intentional when they occur.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
such an important thing. And to your point, when it comes to purpose, you can't, you just, we harp on, I mean, I've listened to so many people talk about just not even with moms, people in general, especially as we get older, we have to have a purpose. If you want to be physically and emotionally healthy, it all comes together. And if you're waking up and you don't feel like you have a reason to wake up, or something that you're doing with your life, whatever that looks like for you, that's a tough road to walk. And I firmly believe that's an even harder thing for moms whose kids are leaving home, because the purpose that has been our major purpose for at least 18 years is all of a sudden
Yes.
starting to dissipate. And so having these conversations, even if they maybe seem like fluff or just like, why are we talking about this? They're important conversations to have, because any clues that we can use that will lead us into more purpose for ourselves is only going to help us thrive in this phase of life.
Yeah, I think about all the people that we know in our life, the tragic story about, the guy that retires and sits on his couch for like 3 months and then goes to the doctor and has a
Yeah,
tragic diagnosis, like he's worked his whole life. But the, yeah, I mean, obviously there are things out of our control, but
of
there's
course.
enough of those stories that you hear that just make you wonder how our purpose is, our emotional health, our view of ourselves, and how that obviously can manifest in our physical health. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because it literally is your reason for living,
Yeah.
right? So it's like on an energetic level, if you're excited to jump out of bed and go do something that you're able to meet a need for someone else, it's like a next level. Not everybody will get there. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't see it, it's okay. You know, be that person who you know, just accept it and be happy. But if you're like so many of you are listening and thinking, what else is out there?
Mm.
What is that next thing for me, right?
Yeah.
That question we hear all the time, what's next? I'm here to tell you, or we're here to tell you, that it's meeting the needs for others.
Yes.
Again, which ironically we've been doing for 18 plus years.
Right.
And we get really tired of it. When they leave, we're like, oh man, it's time to focus on ourselves.
Right.
And then we come along and we tell you, actually not. But it is focusing on yourself, because when you do good for others, you do more good for yourself by giving yourself a purpose.
Yes. And I think, and you just summed up beautifully we're having a bigger conversation.
It's not rocket science.
No, but that's the simple, what we're getting at here is that when you meet a need for somebody else, whatever that looks like, it could be a big need, it could be a small need, it could be in a business, it could be just showing up for your neighbor, your friend when they're down, whatever that is, when you're meeting a need, you're serving a purpose.
Boom,
and
mic drop.
Yeah, and you're so right, because we've done that, and a lot of us didn't have time to be meeting the needs of anybody else that we interacted with, and couldn't think outside of either the job that we had outside of the home and our kids, or if we were at home primarily with our kids. We just didn't have the energy, the time, like, right? Time is finite. So there's only so much time in a day. But now that the kids don't need us as much, where are we going to shift that focus? And that's why when we start to think about, okay, well, what are our own needs? What are the needs of the people around us? How can we, that's what's at the heart of this conversation.
Yes. And I just want to add before we clue up that I think there's a stigma that we can have personally. At least I know that I do. So if I don't believe I'm the only one. You tell me if this is way off base, but I think there's a stigma about giving of ourselves to other people without getting paid, or, that we could be seen as a doormat or giving too much. Well, they're not. You're kind of checking that and like, okay, well, nobody's doing this for me. Why am I doing that for others?
I think that's human nature.
But if you look at some of the like most self-actualized people, like, I'm just going to throw out a few names, but for instance, Mother Teresa.
I knew that was coming.
Use her as an example. Now she happens to be a saint, so we're not striving necessarily for that ideal. But the point is look at the power and the influence that she had by giving. And so there's actually so much quiet strength.
Yes.
It takes a strong, confident person to give of yourself to others.
Right.
And the reward is more strength and confidence.
I agree. I don't think there's any higher purpose that you can serve than by contributing just for the sake of contributing. You meeting a need just because it's not self-serving at all, right? And to your point, I think that's where your law of reciprocity comes in, because those types of things always come back in one way or another,
Yeah, it's just a natural law or whatever you want to call it. But when you give something to someone, it makes them, if they're a decent person, it makes them more likely to want to give back to you.
Yeah.
It's used in marketing and sales all the time. The law, like if you've ever noticed you get something for free, right? Then you're more likely to want to do business with those companies.
Which, by the way, don't have that in mind. Like, if I do something for her, then she's going to come back maybe 2 weeks from now and she'll do something for me. We're not professing like
don't
the
keep
mafia
score.
here.
Don't keep score.
Sure, I'll do that, but when it's time, you're going to scratch my back too. But no, it's true. I mean, I'm just trying to keep it a little bit light, but I 100% I couldn't agree with you anymore. And that's where I think,
mark it down. You agreed with me.
That's first time and only time today. But that's where we have so many different moms that listen to us. Some of you have been solely in the house with your kids. Some of you have had part-time work and with your kids. Some of you have had full-time work out of the home and with your kids. But, for the moms, and to each their own, like no judgment here at all. I've done a little bit of both, and I was not the mom. I was better. I've shared this before, working sometime out of the house. I was a better mom. I showed up better for them when I could be out of the house a little bit. But for the mom that's wired and was wired and had all the joy in being at home with her kids, and that was her full-time job, man, what better, like, talking about contributing in a way like where you're not getting anything back from that. I mean, you're getting your kids, but that's a huge.
Yeah. So hopefully we help remove some of the stigma. If you're thinking, well, why would I do that for someone else? It's for yourself. You're doing it for you.
Sure.
By keeping in that. I mean, you're clearly gifted at that. You're clearly love that. Why would you stop?
Yeah.
It's not going to look exactly the same. It's not going to be your kids, but man, you're still going to get so much good by finding a family in your neighborhood. We love that example. An elderly person, somebody at work, somebody who needs partner in the gym. There's someone in your life.
Animals.
Animals. Yeah.
You
Right.
can be a great
So,
caretaker for animals
yep.
too. And by the way, before we wrap up, I just want to take a moment too to say, if you happen to be listening and you're in the camp, and I have some really good friends who are in this camp that are like, I feel guilty because I feel like I should be doing something more and like taking on the world and like what's next for me, but also like I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
It's been like a long several years, and every time I sit and just get still to try to kind of regroup and listen to what's next for me, all I keep hearing is rest. Like, you need to rest and it's okay to rest. So I just want to like encourage you, if you're at that place, sometimes the first step to finding your purpose is taking a step back and taking some time to rest and to take care of yourself first. Because if you haven't been taking care of yourself all these years and you're completely frazzled, us telling you to go find another need to take care of someone else is not necessarily going to work for you. Because if your cup is not full, you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's okay to do that too. And that might be your first step to finding your purpose is I've got to recharge my own batteries first so that I can feel good enough and have enough energy and also think clear-headedly enough to figure out what I want to do next.
Amen.
So I think that's a good place to wrap.
Yep.
You good?
Yes.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. We always appreciate your feedback and we appreciate you showing up and all the downloads. Please share the episodes with a friend, especially if you found one or heard one that was particularly of interest to you, because I'm sure it would be to others as well. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you would prefer to watch us over listen, we're also on YouTube. And make sure you check out the website, www.lifeafterkids.com, for all of our free resources and everything else that we've got going on there.
Awesome. Yeah, just go sow a seed.
Love that. Have a great day, ladies.